Voters in New York encounter problems it pose in Democratic primary. Rebecca Traister, guess who wasn't on the rolls this morning at the polling place I voted for 4 years? Me, meaning Rebecca Traister. So several New York voters reported Thursday that they were not on the voter rolls at their voting locations during today's Democratic primary. Yeah. A lot of people were using Twitter to report the fact that they were unable to vote, though they are New York residents, though they have not moved, though they have not changed their party affiliation. Voters are disenfranchised in New York, as they've been disenfranchised in various states across the country. But there's something particular about New York you need to know. What I have here is a document, an article written in The Atlantic that says, New York, worst in the country voting system. Does it sound like it's like a secret that the voting sucks in New York? I mean, it's plain as day. New York's worst in the country voting system. And you say, Tim, why is it so horrible? What is it? The short answer for that is they want it that way. Yeah, like, look, guys, I'm not one of those people that believe that there's something wrong with the ability to fix things. See, when things are not fixed, not repaired, not set straight, that are allowed to remain askew, that's because that's the way it's intended to be. Similar to our criminal justice system. See, you can't just for so long say, hey, man, we just keep dropping the ball. We just keep making mistakes. We're just so incompetent. Accidents happen. No, like after a while, once problems have been identified and you fail to rectify those problems, well, then it becomes intentional. As in, on purpose. So, you might ask, hey, Tim Black, count the ways, Tim Black, of the things that are wrong in New York voting that make it so horrific. Well, here we go. Clumsy design ballots, an antiquated registration process, confusing deadlines and outdated laws, long lines, no early voting, no same-day registration. That enough? Voter suppression always supports the incumbent. Always. It supports the status quo. See, people that are energized are typically energized by the challenger, not the incumbent. So whenever you have a voting block or a voting location or a voting state, you ever have a campaign, an election day, and you say the voting is really hard. People are really complaining about not being able to vote. Always know that is a telltale sign that the incumbent will be victorious. Because why? Because energy comes typically from insurgents, comes from the outside of the political system, and those are the challengers who are challenging status quo. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is that there is an incentive for Andrew Cuomo to maintain a dilapidated, underperforming, suppressive voting system in New York City because it benefits him and it benefits his friends. It maintains status quo. So, look, this, like I said, this is not a new issue. New Yorkers are pretty much aware of how horrible their voting is in New York. And that's a downer. It's more than a downer, it's a travesty. They're still in our democracy and they're doing it right in our face. It's one thing for you to steal out my bank account. It's another thing for you to steal out my bank account, email me that you did it, then show up to send me a thank you letter in person. That's sort of like what they do with this vote depression or vote suppression. That was funny. Vote depression. Well, as bad as that is, guys, and believe me, it's bad as hell. I don't want you to have the opinion that Cynthia Nixon running in that race against Andrew Cuomo, challenging the status quo, was all for naught. It was for something. Well, see, there are a couple of things that were accomplished in her race. One is she spoke truth to power when she was able to challenge Andrew Cuomo live on a debate stage and expose vulnerabilities that can be exploited in later elections. It also infused, invigorated, and energized progressive candidates and people who are thinking about running for office with, hey, maybe this thing is like we can make a go at it. Maybe we can challenge the status quo, which is always good in a democracy, a healthy democracy, not a dying democracy. And some would argue our democracy is dead and stinking and buried 6 feet deep. But to stay positive, there are a couple things that about the Cynthia Nixon challenging of Andrew Cuomo that I want you to be aware of. One of the things that Cynthia Nixon did accomplish is, well, she put Andrew Cuomo on the defensive. It's always good to put the status quo relics, these establishment animals, on the defensive to have to defend the indefensible, such as Andrew Cuomo had to move from his antiquated stance on marijuana. Yeah, he was one of those people going, oh, the wacky weed, it's a gateway drug and it leads to heroin addiction. Yeah, one of those guys. Now he's kind of moved on that. Now he's loudly supporting legalization. At least in words, and these are all words with Andrew Cuomo, that's all you get, words. But he started supporting restoring voting rights to New Yorkers. Yeah, that's a great thing, like restore voting rights to the formerly incarcerated, those out on parole. Now, there are going to be some of you who say, Tim Black, man, these things are not tangible. What good are they? And what proof do you have that any of this really impacted Andrew Cuomo? Well, the guy just tried to open a bridge to try to like show, hey, I'm doing stuff. And I know, look, I feel very strongly. I can't know, I'm not inside of Andrew Cuomo's head, but he did that, in my opinion, only to thwart criticism that he wasn't doing enough for New York. One way I know that he rushed that process is that they had to shut down the bridge he tried to open because it was unsafe for human beings. Oh, God. One of the most beautiful parts of Cynthia Nixon's campaign in calling out Andrew Cuomo is she called him out about the subway system, right? And like this is vintage establishment trickery, right? Andrew Cuomo defended himself against himself. What I mean is, you know, like Cynthia Nixon called out how the subway system is antiquated, needs to be updated. Once you repair it, it'll benefit New Yorkers. New Yorkers need this infrastructure. It'll create more jobs. It'll make traveling, commuting much better. Anybody who's been in New York, no, parking sucks. It is a definitely, if there is a place that desires or needs like better railways, it would be New York. And this guy was like passing the buck on the MTA. These are the folks that run the subway system. It's their fault. It's not my fault. It's the MTA's fault. Who oversees the MTA? Andrew Cuomo oversees the MTA. Get it? So he was blaming himself for himself. The progressive movement is a loosely joined thing, right? And there are candidates who are running, they challenge the status quo. You may not agree with all their policies, and they may even have questionable backgrounds, but some of them, like Cynthia Nixon, they get out there, speak truth to power, they put people on their heels, and no, the outcome that we got is not the outcome that we would have liked to have, but I will take a Cynthia Nixon bucking the system, running as hard as she did. Folks, she was outspent 20-1. If we really want to reform our politics, we got to get money out of politics. Cynthia Nixon, 95% of her donations, I'm not mistaken, the number is really high. It's like 90 to 95, maybe 98% of her donations were small money donations. She didn't take any corporate money. Okay? Andrew Cuomo, on the other hand, less than 1% of his donations were from individuals and small contributions. Sometimes you got to run more than once. I feel that way. I felt that way in Florida, where candidate who's been on this channel often, Tim Canova, is running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a beast of the establishment, created from the establishment, bred and fed and raised in that environment. That's what she is. And just like Andrew Cuomo, supports Republicans over Democrats all the time. Well, same thing with Tim Canova. You got to run more than once, and that's what Tim Canova's doing in Florida. So Cynthia Nixon, if you're watching, anybody who's friends of Cynthia Nixon and fans of her, spread the word. Sometimes you got to take more than one bite at the apple, but you keep biting, I think you're going to eat that apple. I don't know if that's the best analogy, because nobody wanted to eat New York, but you know what I'm saying. Like, you got to keep at it. That's what I'm saying.